You speak about development of consciousness. Do you see that as tantamount to development of the soul? And do you think the deepest sense of self is the same for everybody?
Well, yes, in terms of the deepest level of the self is the same for everybody, but there's a difference between consciousness and soul. So consciousness is completely impersonal. Consciousness is not an individual. It's the deepest level of the self is consciousness, but it's not an individual. The soul is the deepest part of any individual. This is the deepest part of the self that's still personal. So when we get into just consciousness itself, it's beyond any individual. But the soul is the deepest part of any person or any individual that's still personal. And in my teaching, the state of the soul of the individual has to do with the state of moral development. But the soul is a very interesting thing, and it's very important for the postmodern self to start talking about soul, because over the past 30 or 40 years, we've stopped talking about the soul because we've gotten so interested in the mind and so interested in the ego and interested in consciousness, we've forgotten about the soul. But the soul, you could say, would be the state of moral development of any particular individual. Okay? There are some people that are bad people. Have you ever met a bad person? You have extremes, like people like Pol Pot or Adolf Hitler. You have these extremes. And then you have people that are really evil but aren't quite that bad. Hitler is all the way out there. And then you have one extreme, and then you have other extremes of people that are saints. Well, a saint is an individual who has gone so far beyond their ego, they are living only for the welfare of others. They don't live for themselves anymore. They're completely transcended the personal ego. Right? So in the presence of a saint, one can almost feel horrified, because in the reflection of a saint, you see your own selfishness, right? Your own small-mindedness. Isn't that right? If you're ever in the presence of a true saint, you go, ah, and you can see your own pettiness, right? It often can be quite unpleasant. Okay, so on one hand, you have a saint, but there's a level of purity and pure motive and goodness that is very, very, very rare. That's one extreme. On the other, you have an evil monster whose soul is absolutely black. Okay? The way I define the soul would be the accumulated consequences of everything that has happened to an individual. Like, there's a lot of things that have happened to us. We've been victimized by so many circumstances, this, that, and the other thing. So many things have happened to us. So the soul is the accumulation of everything that has happened to us and all the different responses we've had to whatever it is that has happened to us. And as you all know, two different people can undergo the same kind of trauma. Some individual, and they can both respond in very different ways. Some people, can never recover. It was so terrible, I can never recover. And some other people manage to recover and even prosper as a result. Okay. So the soul would have to be the state of moral development at the individual at the deepest level. It has to do with the goodness or lack of goodness of the self. It has to do with moral development. How much does any individual care? See, how much do you or anybody else really care? So if you really care, not think you care, but if you really care, you live like you care. It shows you really care. So the goodness and the care for something higher shines through such an individual because there's a high level of moral development. So, for the postmodern self, I very much believe is very depraved, because we've all become so selfish, and it's not our fault. We've been brought up in a culture of narcissism and materialism, so we've all been taught to be very selfish. Sweetheart, what do you want to do when you grow up? It's all for you. So we've been all trained to be narcissistic, selfish people, and our soul has withered. We've become very soulless, uncaring people. Now, when I say soulless and uncaring, I mean, I know you care about your boyfriend or your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your children, your parents, maybe, but I'm talking about developing a deeper sense of care to one in which you actually begin to care about bigger things. You know, it includes those things, but you actually begin to care about life. You begin to care about the universe. You begin to care about the process. You begin to really care. And the degree to which you begin to care, that's moral development. Moral development and care are the same thing.